Günther, welcome to the Commerce Talks podcast. Today, I'm looking definitely forward to learn more about like the KSA region together with my co-host Lina. Here we are talking about KSA, Cenomi, and your own journey into this kind of market. So welcome to the Commerce Talks podcast, and please introduce yourself a bit and Cenomi.
First of all, hello Lina, hello Alex. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure and honor to talk to you guys. A short introduction. I'm the actual CEO of Cenomi Retail. Cenomi Retail is an Saudi Arabia-based retail organization operating in more than 1,500 stores, having more than 65 brands in 11 countries and approximately more than 10,000 employees. Our headquarters is based in Riyadh, so we are working out of Riyadh, but also the broader MENA area, so from Morocco, Jordan, Egypt, and the CS countries mainly are operated by us. What are we doing? We're the largest franchise retailer in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that means when you're shopping in shopping malls and when you're, for example, going to a Zara store, a Massimo Dutti store, or to an Apple store, or the LF store, is the name down there. It's literally the stores what we are running. And that's the business what we're doing. And beside that, Cenomi, which is the sister company, Cenomi Centers, we own, I would say 80% of the shopping malls in Saudi Arabia. That makes it on the one hand easy, but also on the other hand also tricky, to run this organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And some of you, some of the listeners, maybe are following your personal, journey when it comes to, retail CEO, positions. And, you've been working for Aldi, for example, or for Müller. And, therefore you have quite some experience in the European retail market. This makes it even more interesting here in the podcast. So what brought you into that region and what have you learned in your first year?
That's a good question, actually. To be honest, I learned all my retail skills through my 15 years with Aldi, grocery, discount grocery retail. And I was fortunate enough to work, on a global basis. So it was really an exciting journey. After that, through my Müller journey, I've learned how to run, I would say, a department store, because the concept of Müller doesn't really exist the second time in the world, which is, I think, unique and, really very successful. And after that, after this kind of almost 20 years of, being in two typical German, European-based, organizations or retail organizations, I thought it's step to move on. And I was looking into the regions where do you see growth, globally. And there at the moment, when you look now at the globe, 3 areas where you have growth. On the one hand, it's India. On the other hand, it's the USA in certain areas. And for sure, and it's quite, up in all media, it's the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia. When you look at Vision 2030, when you look at all the big mega projects, what Saudi Arabia is kicking off on the one hand, but also where now the world is looking into Saudi Arabia when it comes to Expo 2030, when it comes to the World Championship, when it comes to the Winter Asian Games. So there's a lot of accumulation going on down there. And a lot of people say Saudi Arabia is at the moment like Dubai for 15, 20 years ago. It's an easy comparison, but it's also not true because Saudi Arabia is totally different than Dubai. Dubai is a country dominated by expats, let me put it that way. Saudi Arabia is a very beautiful country where you really be exposed to the Arabian hospitality, to Arabian culture, how you do business, how you interact with consumers. And to come back to your question, why I chose Saudi Arabia, I got approached by a headhunter, offered a great job opportunity. And here I am now since almost a year, moved with my family here, started last year in Ramadan, and was experienced then the heat of Saudi Arabia during summer. So these are all things what we Europeans are not used to, but it's somehow similar. On the other hand, totally different. And I called it when my friends asked me, why have you done it? I wanted an adventure in life. And it's on a personal level, but also on a professional level, a huge adventure with a lot of benefits.
Maybe one last question before Lina starts, like the next one, because the film was very popular here in Europe. I don't know if you remember, it was like with Tom Hanks. There was a movie 10 years ago called A Hologram for the King. where like the Saudi Arabia was like in the middle, and it was really describing it as a very, very wild country, especially for expats, like adapting to the culture, and it's everything in the desert. It's very kingdom centered. So how much truth today do you see if you compared what was shown in the movie?
Actually, I'm not a big fan of this kind of comparisons. Why it would be the same if I would say, well, if you look at the Piefke saga and talk about the Germans, or if you look about the Sound of Music and talk about the Austrian, you get a certain picture and start to put people into boxes. And Saudi Arabia is, for sure, there will be some true elements in there. For sure, like in every culture, what you can finger point. But it's the change what's happening only within the last 3 years is like a high speed train, which is passing through full speed a station where you're just standing there and you're blown away by the speed and the wind, which is going on. When you compare it to Europe, where, from the way how decisions are made, how society is progressing, it becomes more and more like an open air museum where people from all over the world like to travel there, spend their holidays, go to Paris, go to Berlin, go to Munich, go to Vienna, go to Zurich. But when it comes to, developing, when it comes to driving the business forward, I think the free region, what I mentioned before, and at the moment, those who are really pushing the limits. And that's what you experience in Saudi Arabia. When you talk to the people, all the people from the taxi driver down to the CEO management to the shareholders of businesses, everyone is aligned under Vision 2030. And you get more and more the feeling that this country is somehow run like a company. So everyone is aligned on the vision. Everyone works towards that vision. And it's I think a total different exposure what you have in Europe, where you have, I would say, a lot of argumentation about minor points, where we got distracted from the real issues, what have to be solved. And is everything good in Saudi Arabia? Not, for sure not, but they are trying to do it better. And at least this effort to become better the day than before is for me inspiring. And this is also my mindset, always move on, always keep pushing, make the next day better than the one which is behind you. And this kind of mindset you get when you're just there, and when you just spend a week or 10 days in Saudi Arabia, you're exposed to all these people and projects. You somehow get the vibe, and you can't really describe it. You have to feel it and you have to see it.
So Günther, hello.
Hello, yeah.
So as we are talking about the vision, the 2030, I actually totally agree with you. And it is like run like a country. And if we look at the e-commerce and the whole digital revolution, they kind of skipped a few centuries, let's say, and we are developing the e-commerce ecosystem in the country, not just, I guess, as Cenomi retail, but the country itself is building the infrastructure required for the e-commerce. And here you are with 65 plus brands, which probably already has, as a parent company. So you have a country that has a vision, and you have the brands that already have successful e-commerce in their own in their own countries. So what are your ambitions when it comes to the e-commerce? How are you planning to shape it? Because you will be the key contributor to the success of e-commerce in that region.
Spot on, Lena. E-commerce and the affinity of people when it comes to, interacting, with e-commerce is, I think, amazingly big, and it's growing day by day. When you look at the success of Shein and of Temu, and they are growing double-digit numbers, year on year, it's really phenomenal. On the other hand, as a brick and mortar retailer, that gives us some challenges. So, we're in a transformation from a brick and mortar business and online business to an omnichannel business. And, as you know, this is somehow a painful exercise, when you have to combine, brick and mortar and online. But on the other hand, it's the only solution, the way forward, because at the end, you have to focus on the customer, no matter what business you are. And, every friction what you have when it comes to interacting with the customer, you have to take out this friction. And what we see already in the e-commerce is, we have it's maybe also down to the age of the population of Saudi Arabia. I think 70% are below 30 years. So there's a high affinity of young people ordering products, through e-commerce. On the one hand, it's easy accessible, price-wise, they have a good price point. And this is also maybe one wrong perception what Europeans have about Saudi Arabia. Everyone is rich there. This is a wrong one, because Saudi Arabian customers are as cost focused as Europeans, maybe sometimes even more. They're looking after great customer service, and are not accepting, I would say, mediocre service. And therefore you really have to come up with a strong solution. And if you look at the e-commerce players in the market, Known, for example, is a really one who dominates the area. Is doing a great and fantastic job. But on the other hand, if you look at Shein and what's going on there, it's something what we really have to closely monitor and focus, not to be, I would say, not to lose or not to extend the gap between us, because they are already better than us. But we're here to make it better and to, overtake them on the long run.
Yeah, I think you have a very strong brands, and you definitely, I'm glad to hear that as a leader, you acknowledge in the whole e-commerce as one of the successful element. And, it's funny you mentioned that in GCC, we all like the discounts. And I say to all my clients, I said, we're 365 days a year running on the discounts. And the European parties reply saying, if you're discounting it to keep the customers, you already fail. So what's your view? Because I kind of have an argument around it, because the consumer in the Middle East is definitely very different. So do you think that we don't really have a loyalty and we're just discounting it? Now we spend a year, or you think it's just because consumers are used to discounts, so we kind of have to keep it going to keep them online?
I would say it's a two-sided sword. On the one hand, customer loyalty comes from, on the one hand, a great offer and a great price. And therefore you have to be competitive with everyone in the market. And if the market forces you somehow to run a promotion and discounts, you can't escape that. But the other side, and that's where I think loyalty comes from, is to really build great customer service. And when you're in interaction with the customer, they're taking away the friction of making business with each other. If you're getting better and better on that level, and there is, I think, a lot of room for improvement, for what I see so far here, I think you can create this kind of customer loyalty. At the moment, it's mainly driven by price. That's what I have to acknowledge. And, those people who make the biggest promotions, or, who shout the loudest about discounts, look like they are the most successful. But there is, an old wisdom we retailers say, the discounts what you gave is the margin what you added beforehand. So therefore, just watch closely. But you're right. It's the customer loyalty is at the moment more, I would say, diluted by the price point.
So actually I'm talking, this week, this Thursday, I don't know when this podcast will be aired, but like this Thursday in the ORF, in your home country, about Temu and Shein and the discount, culture there. But before we are deep diving in there, so you're saying you're running like a franchise, it's kind of a franchising organization, like getting the brands into the market, like Zara, for example, correct? If I was wrong. So, but what does it mean? So you then, you're responsible for the brick and mortar operations and the online operations. So therefore you need to decide where to spend money in order to get customers in front of the Zara merchandise. Is that correct? Or is there like a global Zara organization spending some Google marketing dollars in the KSA region on top?
Well, actually, it's a mixture. There is no black and white. But on the one hand, I would say we have a really great partnership and cooperation with Inditex and Zara especially. And this is more like, even though we're two companies, we somehow work like one company. And that's why I'd say it's hard to distinguish. But when it comes to, the online, and the brick and mortar, we're operating that, and we're responsible for, what's happening within, the geographical footprint of Saudi Arabia, for example, or, of Jordan, or, of other countries. And therefore, actually, it's our decision how to run and to do it. But, for sure, all the kind of campaigns what Zara is doing is, we are having them in our countries, as every global market is having them as well. So therefore, I would say the way forward is decided by Zara, but the execution and the operational excellence is coming from our side. That's where we have the expertise. And that's why we also have the trust of, I would say, a lot of remarkable brands, because they know in that market, which is a really different one than Europe one, you need a partner who knows how to operate, within all the circumstances, what you're facing.
and now with this upcoming trend from new Chinese verticalized retailers. So Shein is a retailer, for the ones that are not aware of it, that is like connected to a couple of manufacturers in China and is trying to put out 3,000 to 5,000 SKUs, new SKUs per day on the platform. And so I'm following a lot of like discussions with like European retailers on it, and even and including Inditex and Zalando and About You and Otto, and they have a hard time to play catch up because it seems to be like a change in the whole supply chain model. So how brands and how products are built. And I've read like last week a comment in a very well-known journal about the textile industry that the brands itself are becoming like less valuable because like it's more about affordable bargains for the customer and a shorter time to market for certain products that they want to have, and for them it doesn't matter if there's a Zara brand on it or an Adidas brand or whatever. So, and this led actually to a very, very sparky discussion in the market, and I would like to understand like your view here. So from a customer adoption point of view, obviously this proposition of like new Chinese companies seems to be very attractive, but what should a brand do? Like, if there's any, if you could play wishful thinking. So what is it? What would be the best reaction here? Or are we maybe too progressive when it comes to the future trajectory of Chinese platforms?
Let me put it that way. And I have somehow a kind of, a halo effect, because when I was working for Aldi, there was always a discussion. Is it only the price, the reason what brings customer back, or is it something else? And I say price is one argument, but what I said beforehand, customer loyalty comes from something else. On the one hand, the trust that you have a fair price and that you're not getting pulled over the table, as you would say, in good old Germany. So therefore you have to come up, with a kind of clear and transparent strategy for your pricing. It's not only about price, about your quality. It's about how, what factories are you manufacturing? What is your impact on environment? And therefore we are talking about maybe different kind of customers. On the one hand, you have the customer who is purely focusing on price. And therefore those customers don't really care about the emotional value of a brand. So in the way of, that's what I want to talk to you. If you develop your brand, for example, any kind of fashion brand, let's take Zara as an example. If you add an emotional value to this brand, with every black t-shirt you're buying, for one hand, you're getting a certain quality for a certain price, but on the other hand, you're also proud of having a Zara t-shirt, for example. And this kind of added value, you can't really, measure in the classical way. And by making a brand, emotionally, where your customer is emotionally attached to what you as a company are doing, you create this kind of, loyalty. But coming back to only customers who are looking after the best price and best deal, there is literally no argument or no chance how to beat companies like Shein and Temu and others with their same weapons, meaning having the same price point, having the same quality, having the same delivery time. So all these kind of topics maybe are lined up. At the end of the day, it's the customer who has to make the decision. Does he go for the product? And with everything what goes along with that, by every decision what you're making, where you put your dollars or your euros behind it, you somehow make a decision what kind of company, what kind of country, what kind of institution are you somehow sponsoring. And therefore, the more customers are, I would say, educated, maybe the more the decision will be guided in that direction.
Are there any brands in the regions that are like, especially fashion brands that are produced locally? Because maybe I remember it wrong from another podcast, but I believe somebody said that part of this kind of 2030 vision was also like establishing a certain manufacturing capability in the region around fashion or so. I forgot it, but are there brands, I don't know, maybe, that are like produced in the region and therefore also promoted as like a regional product? And if so, is that something customers are looking for?
I can't really recall you on that question because I don't know it in detail. I know there is an upcoming fashion industry where Saudi Arabia is putting also a lot of money behind it for local designers, local manufacturing, as you're saying. But what's happening in the society of Saudi Arabia is that people are really proud to be Saudis. when you look at the Saudi National Day, at the Independence Day and Flag Day, what they're having right now. And they're also getting more and more proud about products which are manufactured in Saudi Arabia. And when you look at the automotive industry, for example, about the Sear company, which is, or Lucid, the electric cars which are coming around the corner, the Saudi government is looking at also not only the car assembling, but also all the parts which are produced. Also, Austria will be hit by that quite heavily, I think. This kind of industry who supplies the car manufacturers are moving now to Saudi Arabia to produce locally, to really get a kind of local product and to have, I would say, the value creation within the country. And for sure, one thing is the price point, but for sure, you are proud, like the Germans are proud to buy an Audi, a Mercedes, or a BMW because it's their German car. This is the idea behind, I think, what on the one hand, Vision 2030 is following in as well. And where then also loyalty comes with, because you're buying a product which is from your country. So somehow the dollars stay within your circle. But early days for the fashion industry, to be honest.
Günther, continuing this whole how proud they are, I totally agree with you. Like, for me, that was the key differentiator of this region when I moved. They are so proud where they come from, and they instill the values into their kids and everything from religion to how they work to the language itself. I think, we all as Europeans sometimes, could be jealous for that. I would like you to give a bit of more flavor to the listeners around, maybe their Southeastization strategy, because you in retail is really exposed. And maybe if you can, maybe you can touch base on the recent learning academy that you launched in Cenomi, because I think as such experienced leader, your input into that learning academy is something that you cannot buy, and it's phenomenal that you're pushing that trend in Saudi. So maybe you can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, so maybe that's one of my core principles, where I run organizations, or where I try to run my family as well, because the family is the smallest company you can run, if you want to compare it like this. And everything comes down to a very simple principle, which means leading by example. So you can't ask people to do something what you yourself are not willing to do as a leader. And this concept, I think, works globally, and is much appreciated in Saudi Arabia. For example, that people somehow really shocked that you as a CEO, you're going into the stores, that you're going into the back room, that you're going into, all the rooms where normally only helpers would go. And even though, try to assist them and work with them. So that on the one hand creates this kind of loyalty. And you mentioned one topic, Saudization. This is a Saudization, for those listeners who don't know, is a kind of from the government institutionalized law where you have a kind of certain amount in certain fields of the businesses, where you need Saudi employees. This is a kind of threshold. And if you're not having that, you're not applying to the law and get penalties. The reason behind it is to really enlarge, especially the female workforce, in the country, which they have done. They had the goal till 2030, 30% of females work in the workplace. I think they've overachieved it now by 37% already. That has ups and downs. On the one hand, for sure, a lot of unexperienced people are joining, the retail industry, for example, and that brings us on the table. We have to train them. We have to educate them, because what for example, from Europe, especially from Germany and Austria, there you have this kind of, Azubis and, a kind of training, through the job that you're getting, taught over a period of 3 to 4 years, how you become a store manager, how you become a warehouse manager. This doesn't really exist in Saudi Arabia. And therefore, this kind of academy teaches really the basics for, beginning how to greet the customer, how to work on a till, how to, engage with a customer in the store, eye contact. So all this kind of, I say, well, that's your housework, we would call it. But this is something when you really want to standardize it and coming back to a kind of certain customer service level, you have to standardize and uniform this kind of approach, and bring all the people on the same table. Because what was fascinating for me in the retail industry is, on the one hand, Saudi people are very into hospitality. So when you're coming to them, they host you like you're the king in the families and in private gatherings. But when it comes to retail, there's really a lack of engaging with the customer. And this kind of seeing the customer as someone what you have to host, is something what we really try to teach, and to really make them brave to speak up to people in the store and ask them, to guide them through the assortment. That's one of the core pillars of the Cenomi Academy. on the one hand. On the other hand, it also offers young people a professional career in the retail industry, how they, from joining us as a store assistant up to an area manager. So there you can really run, I would say, a professional retail career within, I would say, 1.5 years.
Great. So you mentioned, there are quite a lot of similarities, but there's also quite a lot of differences when you enter the Saudi market. And even if you are Zara, you need to adopt to the local laws, and the local rules and local processes. So we have a lot of listeners that maybe already in Dubai or UAE, and as the next big thing, they're looking at the Saudi Arabia, because even not just globally, everyone's talking about Saudi, but even within the GCC, everyone is really looking into the new leadership of Saudi Arabia, the 2030. And you don't even need to have the European brand entering Saudi. It's actually UAE brand is trying to enter Saudi Arabia. So what would be your suggestions, for the brands that are completely new and they're just listening to this podcast? Should they start from hiring locally or bringing leaders like yourself into to lead it, or local presence? Like, any advice you can give?
I think it's a mixture, where for sure you need, on the one hand, and there are a lot of great Saudi locals who have been trained international and world-class universities, and now coming back to Saudi Arabia to really engage with the country and with the upcoming environment. And on the other hand, if you want to embed your culture as a company, if you want to develop your culture, what you've maybe running in the UAE, for example, when you're running in Europe, for sure you need someone who is somehow the guardian to really look into how much you want to stretch the culture, or how much are you accepting changes, and where's the red line. And this is something where I would say a good mixture is dependent on the industry, I think relevant. But there are, also in the experience I'm having, is there are really a lot of great talents out there. The only issue what we are having is as a company is that there are so many projects ongoing. From PF is the Public Investment Fund is running. I would say most of them. They are like a sponge, and they suck every great talent into the organizations to run NEOM, to run the other giga projects. What's going on in Saudi Arabia? So to find the right talents, I think it's the biggest, like everywhere in the world. It's the biggest challenge what you're having. So this so-called war of talents gets in Saudi Arabia on a different level, or on a higher level, because you have the government, which is really a challenging employer, who offers great packages, great opportunities, what you don't have in any other country. And before, maybe to tell you this story, or to share it with you, before I started my career in Saudi Arabia, I had a phone call with a friend of mine who lives in Dubai, and I asked him, what can you tell me about the country? And he said, well, it's in a nutshell, when you look at the country, when you work for the government, the risk that you get a burnout is significantly higher than when you work for the private industry. I would say, I misheard now. So no, it's the opposite of Europe, actually, because the government has such a high pressure to fulfill all these kind of goals, visions, and ambitions what they're having. So they are really working full speed. And when you talk to people who are working for the government, it's really fascinating to see. It's a 24/7 job. It's like, if you run a professional corporate career. So that's, quite similar to what we know from the Western world. So, and therefore this is maybe a huge difference than any other market what I know so far.
Yeah, especially in Germany, I would say nobody's getting a burnout in the government. So, at least I've never heard about this kind of case. So, maybe another thing to compare, with the European.
Thanks God you mentioned that, and not me.
Yeah. So,
there are for sure.
I think it's also true for the Austrian government.
Yeah,
but,
there are for sure a lot of people in the government in Germany and Austria who are really working quite hard and very ambitious to bring things forward. But it's really a unique thing.
But even the hardworking people will admit that the government is ineffective. So how we do it, it's very ineffective, and especially the ones that are hardworking will admit it. And you have lived through the whole discussion in your years at Aldi and Müller, where we talked about the shift from brick and mortar retail into online. And there was like a first wave when Zalando came out, and the second wave and third wave. And obviously many department stores do have like huge challenges now in Europe. We are now in the third insolvency of Galeria, Karstadt, Kaufhof. Many listeners won't know what this is, but it was a huge department store group. When I talk with my network about the region, obviously there's examples of like Dubai Mall and Emirates Mall are coming up. That's a very brick and mortar focused kind of region and one example was given to me because people would still like to meet in mall kind of infrastructures because, especially in the summer, because of the heat. So it's like it's a kind of a free place to meet. Is it the same in case A, or is a shift to online the same as we're seeing in Europe?
To understand this department store and mall environment, you really have to understand, as you said, the environment here in the Middle East is totally different than in Europe. So, when it comes, especially from the period, I would say beginning of May till end of September, mid of October, down to the outside temperatures. And I have to say Saudi Arabia and Riyadh especially has a different climate than Dubai. Dubai is very humid. Riyadh is very dry. So you can really also stay outside, but it's really hot. And therefore the malls, what you see there, in Saudi Arabia, they are different than those in Dubai. They are for sure not on that level. They will get there. There's a lot of thing going on and there's a lot of great development also within our company. There's a so-called mall called Jewel of Riyadh and Jewel of Jeddah coming, which is a kind of mixture of shopping, entertainment, leisure. It's a place where you meet, and where people, engage with each other. And this is, missing, I would say, in Europe, and therefore maybe on the success of online could be a part of it. Nevertheless, I also think, and you see it already, the success of online is also happening in Saudi Arabia, and because people like, what they like is that they like to engage with each other, meet each other, and when you look at Saudi Arabia 3 years from now, or in the past tense, there was no music, there was no restaurants, there was no place where you can really spend your time. Now there is, Riyadh season coming up. There's a lot of things where you can spend your money. So your money is diluted into different areas. So people become more and more cost conscious, and they are coming back now to Shein and e-commerce. These platforms, growing and getting more and more successful because of the cost consciousness of the people who want to spend their money not only for shopping, also for other areas like restaurants, like entertainment, and so on.
There's like one thing I was told in one podcast and during the Seamless conference in Riyadh last year, which for me sounds like a myth. And somebody told me that there is like a return thing in a return challenge even for brick and mortar stores in case A, because people were not used to redress and try on fashion in the stores because of the hijab and the cultural background. So they take it home, try it on there, and then bring it back. So you have like, you're even in brick and mortar environments are creating returns, which like in Europe is like one of the big arguments of the industry, why it sometimes is more efficient to sell, especially in low margins business, to sell offline instead of online. Is this true, or is it an urban myth?
No, actually it's true. Actually, the return rates are quite high, because down to the circumstances that there in some of the stores, till today, there are no changing rooms. They're getting implemented as we speak, because this kind of change, what I mentioned over the last 3 years, is coming so quickly that it's really hard to keep up with all the things what's ongoing. And what can happen actually here is that next week a new law comes up, which makes life even more easier or even more challenging. So you really have to, not like in Europe where things take really long time and things are being brought and discussed beforehand. In this area, it's a different way how these countries are run. And this is something we also have to open say that they are not democracies like Europe. So it's a different kind of political system. And therefore it's a different speed and a different change of things that way.
Mm-hmm.
So digging deeper into this whole omni-channel, and you mentioned the challenges we face with the returns or the assortment. You are a perfect retailer when it comes to creating the next super app, right? So 65 brands, fashion. You stand a good chance to compete with other regional players like Sixth Street or Namshi. Is there a vision to, if we're allowed to speak about, is there a vision to start another super app in the fashion like ASOS of Europe or Zalando? Or you are trying to do more as of a traditional omnichannel where we will start individual brands and then click and collect maybe services? Which way are you thinking when it comes to this whole omnichannel e-commerce integration into group like Cenomi?
Maybe it's a bit early days to talk about or speak about. That's why I can't disclose things here. But what you've maybe read in the news, and this is something what we can already share. We're in the early stages and with Trendyol, where we're going alongside and building a kind of e-commerce platform and offering to our consumers. And this will for sure is for us a big thing, and for the region a big thing, because this will be really on a competitive side. An advantage for the consumer, and let's see what comes around the corner when all of this happens. Hopefully in the near future, inshallah.
No, nice. And then just on digging deeper into that, and while you are trying to do maybe your own and part of Cenomi, what are you doing in terms of now? Because you are technically like a franchise owner. So do you list the products, some of the products or some of the brands on the marketplaces, like the aggregators like Noon, like Namshi, or like Amazon? Is there anything of that going on, or currently just we want to build our own?
No, this is already happening. So actually we are on those marketplaces, and you will find our products there. Maybe not every brand, because it's down to internal discussions with the brand partners. That's why it makes it's a bit more complicated to run a franchise organization than if it's your own brand, because you have different kind of stakeholders what you have to manage. But a certain amount of brands are on different kind of marketplaces quite successful. And this also the growth rate what we're having there shows us how important it is to participate in the e-commerce business and to become a real omnichannel retailer. And therefore what we are now in the phase of really setting up also the backbone when it comes to logistics, when it comes to supply chain. But this is now early stage, maybe too early to talk about, but we are preparing ourselves for this road and for this direction.
So as you are talking about you preparing, so 2030 and e-commerce and Cenomi, how do you see that whole shaping up?
It will be definitely different than today. If it takes till 2030, I think we would have failed, because e-commerce is at the moment a fast speed game. And therefore we really have to step up and have to make our homework there. And therefore hopefully you will see soon something from us. But it should come within the next years. Let me put it that way.
Exciting. Can't wait.
Then one other question. So, as a fellow German speaker, so what are the 2-3 top moments you're sharing usually with people that are interesting to move to the region or to do business in the region? Because there's a lot of like opinions about the region, especially in Central Europe. But what are like the 2-3 examples you usually are giving to your friends, family, colleagues that are thinking, that are asking you, Günther, how is it in Riyadh? How is it in Jeddah? Something what will convince them to come or to stay home?
Also, let me put it that way. I think 99% of all the stereotypes, what are, discussed, being shared in Europe, are totally wrong. You really have to come and experience on yourself to see it. And then you will understand everything what maybe someone has experienced 5 years ago, is no longer applicable right now, because things have changed, in that fast speed. So that, for example, if I tell you I have been in Italy for 5 years ago and I'm going back now to Italy, maybe the things look like 5 years ago and nothing has changed. When you go to Saudi Arabia 5 years compared to now, it is a different country. It's a different mindset. It's a different society. On the one hand, this is somehow freaking. On the other hand, this is really super exciting. But what I'm telling you, people, first experience on yourself. Second, it has even though it's really especially talking about, it's in the middle of the desert. It has a beautiful nature, which, for me was unexpected. I love the nature. I love to be out there in the outdoors. It's, when it goes to the edge of the world, for example, it's like a mountain. How can you compare it? It's like, the Großglockner for the Austrians, or another big mountain or the Mont Blanc for the Swiss people. It's really a unique place, where you can be exposed to the nature, but be only 1.5 hours from the downtown of Riyadh away. The hospitality of, Saudi Arabia is unique. It's something what I've been experienced, now over this almost a year here. And in every case, surprisingly positive. Yeah, and it's the vibe, what you get in here is everything is possible. And it's not about can we do it or is it, or can we not do it? It's about we can do it. It's just when. And this kind of everything is possible. This kind of momentum, it's a bit like the American dream. I would say 50 years ago, where you go there and build your empire. It looks like, when you talk to Saudis, when you talk to a lot of companies who are coming out of Saudi Arabia, they are somehow really sucked in by all this positive, change what's going on. And for sure, from a business point of view, there are huge opportunities when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to all these, giga projects, which are lined up right now till 2030 and beyond to when it comes to the World Cup. It's just pure mathematics, that you see, well, if with everything what's going on there, there must be an opportunity for retailers, for building companies, for infrastructure companies, for HR people, and so on. So there's a massive demand, of people, of ideas, and at the end of the day of execution. And this is something what, maybe we Europeans, especially Germans and Austrians, are quite known for executing, and they can really add value, to the industry here.
Great thoughts, Günther. So now I think we're coming to the end of it. And you mentioned you gave a lot of good advice. And I think with your experience, you can bring a lot into not just Cenomi, but the country itself. So what are your, just maybe closing questions? So what are your top 3 priorities maybe for the next, for this year, for the next year, in terms of helping the country and the group and retail arm of Cenomi grow and expand? Is it learning? Is it making bottom line profitable? What are you focusing on in the next year?
From a business point of view, for sure, raising the top line, raising the bottom line. This is, goes without saying. That's, I think in every business the case. But beside that fact, really building a strong team because, and really try to create this momentum that everyone runs after our vision, after the Cenomi vision, in the way of what we want to achieve. And this is really great customer experience. No matter where you are, get in touch with us, if it's in the brick and mortar business or if it's online. And in the best case, we will become an omnichannel retailer sooner than later. That's actually the overall goal, what we're looking into it, but, really attracting great talents, for our organization, which have great ideas, which hopefully bring us forward, to the next, level of retail in Saudi Arabia.
So we give you now a promotion opportunity. So if anyone wants to apply for these great talents, what's the email address on your website?
You will find it on the website, but you just Google us, you will find us. Cenomi, the name I think has been shared quite often today. And if you're interested in an adventure, like I'm an adventurer, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to share with you. And everyone who comes to Saudi Arabia, we will host him and show him the beauty of the country and the opportunities, what's ongoing here.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cool.